Welcome. I'm Steve Barg, City Administrator for the City of Marshfield, and this is the post-council meeting news conference. We do this after every meeting at the Marshfield Common Council, getting you caught up to date with what the decisions were made and how they impact you as a resident of the community. I'm joined today by Mike Warren. He is representing Hub City Times, and Mike, take it away.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Steve. Good to be back. We haven't done this in a while, but kind of nice to kind of get in touch with city happenings again and take a look at what's going on, because things were kind of quiet there for a while. Things are starting to heat up in terms of some of these things that we've been talking about, it seems, for years. Yeah. One that came up, I think, at not this past council meeting, but the one before that, I think, didn't we have a presentation from Ned? Is it Brickman?
Yep, Brickman from Midland Management. Yep.
And talking about the possible redevelopment of the Marshfield Mall and the property that it's on. And from what I understand, it came up again at this last meeting on the 24th in a closed session situation where it basically just said on the agenda possible assistance for this particular project. Can you bring us up to speed on what was, I don't know, if anything decided or discussed or anything, what can you tell us?
No, nothing came out in terms of open session action or anything like that, Mike. But the discussion, I mean, and you saw the proposal, it's to really kind of, I use the phrase blow up. That sounds bad. That sounds like we're going to explode the facility. But, kind of modifying the model, because malls aren't doing that very well. Across the country, really. Young people especially aren't really tuned into malls, and so people are looking more for the open concept where you'll see a number of businesses side by side. And so that's what he's looking to do here in Marshfield. And but they're looking, as part of it, they're looking for some assistance from the city to try and make this project work financially and otherwise. And so that was a discussion. We're looking at, would we enter a development agreement of some type with them that would help bring this project to the finish line. And I can't talk about the particulars, but it's an exciting prospect. A lot of people are getting really kind of pumped up about the possibility of maybe getting some new stores and getting a different look and feel to the mall. And like I say, to the mall, it really won't be a mall per se anymore. It'll be a different look, maybe more like what you see in Plover and Rib Mountain, where, as I said, a number of stores are more like typically a side-by-side type of feel. But it's an exciting proposition.
Yeah, side-by-side, where basically they have their own separate entrances. And that's kind of what they're looking at? Correct,
yeah, and like I said, that's what you see kind of in places like Plover and Rib Mountain, where you might see 5 or 6 stores side by side. You can't walk from one to the other, you have to go out. And I know some people have said to me, well, wait a minute, it's cold here a lot of the year. Don't people want to be in a mall type environment? Well, again, that's not really that popular anymore. People are looking more for the kind of thing that I just mentioned. So if we can get some good tenants, I say we, not the city, but the mall owner, and they can make this work, it'd be good for everyone. So the question is, to what degree could the city be of assistance to helping to bring this project home? And we're talking about it. You may hear us talking about it for a while now, but hopefully we'll be able to see if something can be done to help this be a reality.
Well, and I think when people hear that term assistance from the city, I think most of us kind of can read between the lines, and we know that means money. And it is in a TIF district, right? And
correct.
So maybe just kind of explain that, what that means, and the fact that, the city can assist with some things up front, but it's not like that money is lost. I mean, the city, I think, eventually basically recoups it through new development, through new property taxes, that sort of thing, right? Am I on the right track?
That is how TIF works. And we've done 2 development agreements already with the mall in the past. The most recent one was Kohl's back in 2016 or thereabouts, 2017. And they brought that department store to our community. And you're right. I mean, so the city makes an investment to help a project become a reality. And then we get the tax revenue, all the additional tax revenue created by that new improvement comes to us until we paid off the debt that we incurred to be a contributor to the project. That would be the same kind of thing here if we went into those waters, where we would we would do it under TIF District 10, and we would use the additional revenues to help pay off any debt that we might incur to help support the project. But again, at this point, there's been no commitments made of any kind. But it is, like I said, an exciting prospect.
Yeah, and when Ned Brickman presented to the council a month or so ago, I guess it was now, I mean, he made it sound as though this is, I don't want to use that term done deal, but he was very optimistic. It sounded like he had maybe some tentative lease agreements in place. Most of the space is spoken for already, and it sounds like this is a very promising proposal that he's got out there.
Yeah, Mike, he does have commitments from some, what he normally refers to as mid-level retailers. Now, people at home are hearing the phrase mid-level retailers and they're thinking, what does that mean? I want store names. Well, he hasn't been talking openly about store names because we don't have the finality on this, and he needs to keep this confidential. But I think retailers that people in this community would like is who he's talking about. And he does. I mean, it's not like he's starting at square one here. He's got a lot of work done already to put the pieces together. And hopefully he can pull the total financing package together, and this can be a new, real jumpstart for that mall.
All right. Anything else on that?
No, I just encourage people to keep their eyes open and listen for more, and hopefully we'll have some good news as we get into the summer. But again, the reason we go into closed session is because these are things we can't talk about publicly, but we're very interested in hoping to see a good development come out of this.
There were two other items I noticed on the closed session agenda. One said development agreement for residential project in TIF District 13 and update on acquisition of right-of-way for Lincoln Avenue project. Anything on those?
Well, I can touch briefly on what they're about, if that's helpful. The one in TIF District 13 is that mixed-use TIF district where we're trying to get a residential project going. It would be another 55 lots for single-family development. Down in the area, just kind of to the east of 21st and Washington Avenue. And so same kind of thing. We have a developer who would like to get some homes developed and get these sites ready for purchase, but they need some assistance from the city, and we're talking about how that might come together. I want the public to know that every time the city enters into some way of helping development, whether that be commercial, residential, or industrial, we do so only with a development agreement that says, okay, all right, we'll do this, but you are obligated to do the following. And you're committed to do them. And if you don't get them done, there's usually some type of penalty or recourse for the city. So in other words, we're treating this like a business investment. We may be putting our feet in the water, but we're expecting in return. And we have protections and security to make sure that if it doesn't happen, that, as I said, we have some way to go back at that. But this one would be residential. It'd be a great addition to what we've already done in Daniels ourselves at Lincoln and Fifth Avenue area. That's 23 lots. You tack on another 55. We could have 78 new lots online for less than 12 or 18 months it took to bring them about. So residential development looks like there's a lot of interest in that right now, Mike.
And anything on the Lincoln Avenue project?
That has to do with the improvement of the roadway, but there's also a trail associated with it, and there's been questions about whether or not we could acquire the right-of-way necessary to put that trail in alongside Lincoln, and just kind of an update on efforts to try and secure the property, the strips of property necessary to make that a reality. There's nothing I can really report at this point on that project, but we are thankful for the grant funding we're getting from higher levels of government, which is going to pay for the lion's share of this project, and people have been looking for that roadway area to be improved for a while.
So when you say higher, I mean, you're talking like state, federal?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of the bigger projects we do now are with federal and state grant money because, as you know, these reconstructions and even a lot of the resurfacing we do is pretty expensive. And so anytime we can get money from others, maybe half or more of the cost, it's a really good thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, isn't new construction, isn't that like $1 million a mile now or something?
Oh, it's unbelievable, Mike. And we're all seeing inflation. People are seeing it when they go to the grocery store, the gas station, all these places. We're seeing it in the cost of our road projects. And we've already seen evidence that they're probably going up by 15 to 20% just based on the 8% inflation that we're seeing across the country. So anytime we can get money from another level of government to make a project happen, it keeps it from being backed up to 2025, 2027, 2029. The kind of things that people hate to hear.
Yeah. Okay. All right. There was, going into the regular agenda, there was an agenda item, and we're kind of working backwards here.
Yeah.
I started at the end of the agenda, and we're working toward the beginning, but it was a kind of a light agenda.
A little bit.
But the one thing that I noticed, too, receive report regarding bathroom facilities, temporary and permanent, now being used in the city's parks, including the degree of usage and hours of availability. I I'm guessing this has to do with one site in particular, but maybe bring me
Well-
up to speed on, it was sort of like, I don't know, it's like when you look at, if you look at one, you may as well take a look at them all kind of situation, maybe talk about what that agenda item had to do with, and I don't know, what was the action or progress on that, if anything?
Well, let me take a step back, Mike. We're very excited to have 3 new elected officials on board. Mayor Lois T. Strake, council members Natasha Tompkins in District 3 and Mike O'Reilly in District 9 have already brought new ideas and new enthusiasm to the council, which is good. You need new blood from time to time. It's always helpful. And one of the passions that Natasha Tompkins from District 3 has is for parks. She's gotten herself put on the Park and Recreation Committee and very excited about that. And she's one of the people who brought up the idea, can't we move up the bathrooms in Wenzel Family Plaza a couple of years? We had them slated in the capital improvement program for 2025. And they've gotten it moved up now to 2023. So next year you'll be looking for bathrooms, permanent bathrooms, to be there at the plaza. But as part of that, Natasha said, you know, what about the parks in general? People are using our parks, they're having picnics, they're playing games. What restroom facilities do we have for them? And for kids especially sometimes, you know, that becomes a big issue if you got young children. So Justin Casperson, our Parks and Recreation Director, was asked to do a little bit of a report. Look at every park we have. Do we have permanent facilities? If so, how often are they open? Do we have temporary, you know, portable toilets out there only for special events, or are they out there on an ongoing basis? So he gave a really good report, and you know, now it's logged in what we have. And I think there'll be some follow-ups from that. I know that Natasha has said that she'd like to see maybe a little bit longer use of the portable toilets into the fall. Can we make that possible? Because even in the fall, people are still out there using the parks. They're playing games. They're having events, and we don't want to get too short on the season. So it was not an action item, but I think from it will come some ideas, maybe even going back to the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee on, is there a way financially we can make it possible to have more restroom facilities available in our parks?
Okay, so that's an ongoing, I don't know, discussion, I guess, and you sort of take it, I don't know, one at a time or something.
Yeah, you know, Justin Casperson, our Parks and Recreation Director, said it's all about money. You know, he said even to have a portable toilet facility out there, you know, well into the fall costs another whatever it was. So it really becomes a question of need and then the degree to which we'd be willing to pay for those types of improvements.
Okay. All right. And again, just kind of continue to work backwards on the agenda. The one before that was receive report on which city meetings are now being filmed and why. And I guess, was that a presentation you made to the council?
Yeah, I did. And this came from a request by Tom Witzel, one of our council members from the meeting before. And I think the thing is, periodically residents say, I want to see the Parks and Recreation meeting, and it wasn't on. I heard they were talking about the park in my area. Why don't we film them all? You know, how come we only put on the Plan Commission and some other ones, but we don't cover all the committees? A couple of reasons. First of all, you know, it's time consuming, and we only have 2 employees in our communications department, and Tom and David run themselves pretty ragged sometimes. The other thing is there's a demand for viewership that would make it so that people would want to see all these meetings, and they're all important. They are. I mean, if you're on the Historic Preservation Committee, you're doing valuable work for the city, but would it really be something that we have a lot of residents who want to see? And then the final thing is, some of these committees never make a final decision. All they can do is recommend up the ladder, ultimately to the council. Well, the Police and Fire Commission has very serious powers themselves under state law. And the Utilities Commission has some authority with respect to rate increases and those kind of things. So we kind of focused on just the main ones that have a greater degree of authority, and kind of felt like the advisory committees will let their recommendations come up through the process. But if the council's interested in looking at more meetings on TV, we can certainly do that. I'll just want to make it known that, in fact, we have limited staff to cover these and limited resources.
So they basically just heard the report and that was kind of it. Did they give you any sort of direction moving forward? Or?
Well, they kind of did. They said that there's 2 committees that they'd really like to see on TV if they can. One is what we call the JL committee, Judiciary and License, and they give out a bartender's license and deal with other licensing issues. And the other one is the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee. And it was felt by at least a couple members of the council that the conversations that they have are significant enough to the public given our desire to see more amenities, better improvements to our parks and the zoo, that ought to be on TV too. So we'll be looking at seeing whether we can get those on the air sometime soon.
Okay. All right. I did notice a few other things having to do with, well, it looks like you're kind of just moving money around here and there for different things. The one I noticed was, well, basically it's within the current year, so that always takes a special sort of, I don't know, is it budget resolution?
Yeah, that's what it is. Because the budget is a fixed document, so anytime you want to move money from one area to another, you need to have a resolution.
Okay, yeah, and I think there were several of them on the agenda, one having to do with an industrial park?
Yeah, that might be the biggest one. We have been without a large tract of land, of industrial land to sell for a while. We have acreage yet that we still own in Yellowstone Industrial Park. But if you called, yesterday, Mike, and you said, hey, I'm interested in buying 30 acres and I bring a business here. Right now I'm in Madison, but I'd love to expand. We'd have to tell you we don't have a 30-acre parcel. So then they'd be calling other communities, not us, to try and locate they might have a lot of employees, great tax base, and we're not even in the running. So we've been working to acquire about 125 acres of land from the University of Wisconsin. It's to the east of Yellowstone Park, and we haven't talked about how to carve it up yet, but with that 125 acres on board, we will now be able to talk to those companies and say, yeah, hey, you need 40 acres? Sounds like you got a great proposal. We got land we can show you. And it's good industrial land. We can get it ready for development, whatever you need. You're in the game. You're finally playing the game that otherwise you're not even a part of. And that really is a critical part of industrial development.
Gosh, I remember way back when there was a land swap or something having to do with the egg station and the city and things of this nature. I'm trying to remember, is this the same sort of area? It's
connected with that, yeah. We, at the time back in 2002, we put money down. We put actually $250,000 down to hold the idea that in 20 years, if we wanted to buy that land, we'd have first dibs, so to speak. And so we're executing now that. The cost of land is more like $600 and something now, and some people might say, well, why didn't you execute back in 2002? Well, we didn't know if we really would need it. We didn't know if Yellowstone would do as well as it did. But by executing this purchase opportunity, we're going to have a big chunk of land to develop, and we've worked with them on swaps in the past too, but we have a very good relationship with them. Everything we do with them has to be run through the UW Regents, and the board doesn't meet that often. But they've given a blessing, and the goal now is to close by June 30th. So come July 1st, we will be the owners of a significant area of industrial land. And again, we don't have any immediate prospects, but now we'll be able to market it and to sell it and get some industry.
Well, and yeah, that kind of answers my next question. It's sort of like, is this, you're responding to immediate demand, or are you just kind of positioning yourselves just in case that, that business from Madison does come along? I mean, nothing, like you said, nothing concrete?
Right. There's nothing concrete. I mean, there are people we've talked to, and there's individuals out there that are interested, but the lack of available land has kept us from being very serious with anybody, and now that barrier has been removed.
Okay.
Or will be removed by around July 4th.
Yeah. So is this I don't know, if you build it, they will come sort of scenario where do you do anything to the land initially? Do you start putting in infrastructure if it's not there? Do you start, and when you say now we've got the land, but now we want to get it ready just in case a potential developer comes along, how aggressive will you be in that area?
I think the way that people used to do development is they would, communities would buy a tract of land and they would put everything in right away: water, sewer, streets, storm sewer. And like you said, build it and they will come. I think what you'll see on the development of this 123 acres or thereabouts, it'll be done in phases. So if we have somebody interested, we'll see how far we need to bring the infrastructure. Oh, you want to put it here? Okay, we'll have to get this many feet of road here. What if we do it like this and we can have the entrance come in off here? We'll be really trying to tailor. I don't think you'll see us suddenly wake up one day and say, hey, let's put 120 acres worth of streets, sewer, water. When you do that, and when you have a long, slow build-out, which can happen sometimes in a smaller community, it's not very efficient. So, and not to mention the fact that a company might want to come and use a parcel that you've already run a road across, dividing it. So you kind of try and look at ways you can develop as you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm just sitting here thinking, boy, if I'm the business, and I'm looking at, the 123 or whatever acres it is going, well, I need 40. But boy, I really wish that road wasn't right there because,
Yeah.
I want all of that. And so it's sort of like tailor-made, let them come in and tell
Right.
you what they want. And now you can respond to that and go from there.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know communities, they used to do this, I don't know if they do anymore, would take 120 acres and they would carve it up themselves. They'd have their little map. Okay, we're going to have a 40-acre site, and these will be our two 30-acre sites, and here's a 10-acre site, and now let's put everything out and get it all set up. I don't know why you do that, because really you're going to want to be able to help anybody who comes in the door with a good proposal, and it may not fit your cookie-cutter design at all.
Anything else on that one?
No, but I'm excited to have the land coming onto the city's rolls because, boy, that, like I said, I keep using the phrase in the game. Maybe that's a tired old phrase, but if you aren't ready, if you don't have the land, and they want to look at 5 or 6 communities in this area, you're not a player. They call you and they say you don't have a 30-acre tract. Sorry, we'll move on. We'll move on to the next one.
Yeah. And it's in the city limits, right?
Correct.
And so, the other thing we hear all the time is, they're not making more land.
Yeah,
so
right.
You've got to sort of try and develop what you have because eventually there is no more, right? I mean, you run out of space that you can capitalize on. So if you can capitalize on every little bit of land or property you have, that's just going to be, better off for you in the long run, right? And because they're not. I don't see you tearing down a whole lot of things to make space for new development.
True. And we're not doing this out of the blue. I mean, back in 2002, the reason we signed that agreement with them and put a lot of money down was the anticipation that if Yellowstone Industrial Park did well, we were going to expand, and the likely location to expand was to the east. So, I mean, there might be people thinking, well, they hear you and I talk, oh, there goes government again. If they just bought the land earlier, they could have saved some money, gotten a better purchase price. What if we'd bought the land and then we didn't have development occurring? And now we're sitting on land that we probably won't use for a long time. We paid for it. We put in utilities. And that's just not a good move. I think that what they did was wise, but now we get the chance to execute.
Okay. There was another budget resolution right after that having to do with I think it had something to do with public facilities somewhere.
Yeah, at the UW.
The
UWSP Marshfield campus. Last year, Brian Panzer of UW here locally came to us and said, hey, look, they call it a chiller, and it provides the cooling for a lot of the campus. And they're having a lot of trouble with it, a lot of maintenance issues. And they wanted to replace it, and they wanted to get money put in the capital improvement plan and the budget for 2022. Here's the funny thing, though. They estimated the cost at $180,000. Now, some people tuned in here may know this, some others might not, but the city and the county, Wood County and the city of Marshfield, are co-owners of the buildings and grounds. So we have a vested interest in making sure that the buildings and grounds are maintained properly. We're a landlord at that point, basically. So anyway, they put it in for 2022. Well, you know what's been happening with gas prices and groceries and everything else. So they went to get quotes on it this spring, and they came in at $280,000 and $315,000. One at $100,000 over estimate, and the other at more than $100,000 over estimate. So they looked at their ideas. What do we do? And they were scrambling. They thought, well, maybe we'll get more duct tape out and keep it running, that kind of thing. And then they found a 150-ton unit, a smaller unit that's very efficient and has a lot of good features to it, and it really will do the job for $210,000. So they came to the city and they came to the county and they said, look, you guys have budgeted $90,000 each, and that gets us to $180,000. But the price is going to be $210,000 if we can do this in the summer. Could you kick in $15,000 a piece more, and let's get this done now, get it done right, avoid future inflationary costs and any problems that might come down the road, and get a decent unit put in now, rather than waiting one more day for prices to keep jacking up. And so the city has said yes, and the county, my understanding is that they're likely to say yes. They've been going through their formal approval process. And then during the summer, they can get this thing purchased, hopefully, and installed. I don't know how long it's going to take them to get it purchased, because I know that the whole supply chain thing is kind of crazy right now. But at least they can get moving, lock in the price, and get the improvement underway.
Well, and how good is Brian at what he ran the street department for years,
Yeah.
and now he's doing it for the UW and really watching out for that bottom line. He knows the stuff. He's got contacts all throughout the state and probably country. I don't know, but he knows the stuff when it comes to what pricing and trends tend to do. So, yeah, he knows that when he sees a good deal, he knows it.
Yeah, and Brian's been a wonderful connection between the city and UW because, you're right. Not only does he know equipment and all that, but he knows our process. He knows how the capital improvement program works. He knows how the budget works. He knows what the council and the committees have to do in order to get approval for funding. So he's able to plug in really well and give them the kind of information that they need to make good decisions.
This isn't an agenda item or anything, but just as long as we're kind of on that topic, you mentioned that term 8% inflation before, and I mean, that's sort of the nationwide number right now. I mean, how is it starting to affect the city, or how bad is it getting in terms of, and you mentioned the other domino in this is the supply chain issue, and now you're talking inflation, gas prices, all these things, kind of the perfect storm of things that may affect a bottom line for a city like Marshfield. I mean, I don't want to say how bad is it getting, but how bad is it getting?
Definitely taking a toll on us. I haven't had it quantified to me yet. We had some breaks. We had a lighter winter at the end of the winter, than we've had in some years. So I think the snow plowing budget went well. Sadly, we've had some people leave, and we haven't been able to find people to refill them real quickly. So we've saved some money in terms of payroll costs, but a lot of that, I presume, is being eaten up, and more maybe, by the cost of products and supplies and everything from equipment to Post-it notes to whatever is going up rather a lot. And like I talked about the road construction projects, Mike, they're coming in at 15 to 20% higher based upon the asphalt costs. And so, if you got a project and you've got it out there at $200,000 and the bids come in and it's $230 or $240, that's a big hurt. It is. It makes us scramble to figure out how we're going to pay for some of these things. But I have not seen anything for the first half of the year yet to quantify what that might look like. But I can tell you from seeing the numbers come in and signing some of the invoices, it's definitely making an impact on us.
Okay. Well, and speaking of people, I see the council, there was a request to authorize appointment of a new human resources director at the council meeting?
Yeah, we've been without a human resources director since Jennifer Rayque left earlier this year, and we did very recently interview 4 people, good candidates, and we're doing some background looking at the candidates now in discussion. But the council has to, by policy, they have to be the ones to give formal approval of an appointment to a department or division head, and this is at that level. Well, the next council meeting, Mike, isn't going to be for 3 weeks. So you look at it and go, well, the next council meeting is on June 14th because we have 5 Tuesdays in May. We got to get somebody doing the job. So I was asking for their authority that when we've done background checking and final decision, that we can move forward apart from the council. Now, I was helped in this process by the fact that 2 council members were on the team, the interview team, Ed Wagner and Nick Paschal. So they looked at me right during the meeting like, yeah, we need to move it on. We have good candidates. If number 1 doesn't pan out, number 2 or number 3 probably will. And so, they gave the blessing that we can hire. I can make the appointment without going to them and get someone on board to be HR director.
Oh, so this wasn't a council decision to appoint someone specific. This was basically a council decision saying, Steve, when the time is right, when you have the right person, go ahead and appoint him, give him the job, and move forward. Right.
You don't have to wait till the 15th or the 14th of June, the way we normally would by policy. And I was very thankful to them for doing that, and because we have to keep these moving. We got to get these positions filled.
Yeah. I know we just recently was it Jessica Schiffrel as the new city clerk?
Is our new city clerk?
And we have, what else is still
open?
Well,
the former Josh Miller position of Development Services Director, that person is over not finance. That person's over economic development, planning and zoning, building inspection. We went through one round of interviews. We had one person decline the job and then decided not to pursue any of the other candidates, so we've reposted that. That's very similar to what we did with HR. We reposted, got a few candidates. They're good candidates, but hopefully we'll see the same thing with Development Services Director. We're taking applications through June 3rd, for that position, and hopefully we'll get it filled to where somebody's on board here at City Hall in July, if it all works out. But these are important appointments. Every person who leaves is important. We need to fill the position, but these are particularly important to some of our basic operations. We've dealt with finance, we've dealt with HR, dealing with economic development and planning. The leaders of those departments, those are positions we need to refill.
The city is having the same problem, the private sector is having a lot. You drive up and down the street and all you see are help wanted signs, now hiring, and this and that.
Yeah.
The city is not immune from that kind of problem, is it?
No, and we're not really sure what's going on. We've had our struggles in the last couple of years, so you wonder if people have Googled us and thought, well, maybe they've had some rocky times. But I'm also hearing from a couple of HR directors that they're seeing the same thing in their organizations. It's not uncommon. And they talk about, what do they call it, the silver tsunami, where people are retiring earlier, part of it fueled by COVID, that they decided to move on. COVID itself has had an impact. I think a lot of people have found ways to work from home, and they don't need to be going to an office, and so they've got jobs that they're comfortable with in their own house. So you put it all together, and I think it's really cut down the number of applicants we get for some of our positions.
Okay. Those are the, agenda items I had highlighted. Anything else coming out of the meeting that you want to highlight?
I don't think so. The other thing I would mention is the capital improvement program, because we had the two meetings on the 5th and the 19th. So that'll be going to the next council meeting on June 14th. I'd encourage people tuned into us right now to look at the plan. It's online. Take a look at how we're planning to spend money in the next 5 years for major improvements to roads, parks, building facilities, everything else. And let us know if you have any concerns, because that blueprint is very important to us as we start heading into the 2023 budget. Other than that, I think it was a little bit lighter agenda than normal. That happens sometimes. You know that, you've covered us for a long time. And the next one could be the absolute opposite.
Yeah, one of those 3 or 4 hour.
We've had them. We've had plenty of those in my time here.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for coming here for the program, Mike. I appreciate your questions. And thanks to everybody here for tuning in to another edition of the post-council meeting news conference. And again, we have this after every meeting of the council so that you can get caught up to date on what's going on, what to expect, and some of the new laws and policies and things that affect you that are coming around the bend. So on behalf of Mike Warren, representing Hub City Times, this is Steve Barg, and thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the post-council meeting news conference.